Good morning, homies who like my daddy's card games. I'm back. I'm back for Super Dick Sunday. Sunday. Yeah, I did the Sunday head tilt. I'm a good puppy. So I'm here today, and we're going to do the Super Deck Sunday, and we're going to try and do it quickly because the peoples are going to be coming for the meeting soon, and they're going to make lots of noise as they get in and out of their cars. But in the meantime, in between time, we have maybe like a half hour, 40 minutes where we can record. So Daddy said, let's get to it. And I was like, okay. Today's deck is a special one. Daddy originally made this deck for Gamma, but Gamma, she didn't really want it. And then Daddy, he fixed it up some. So you guys have seen this deck before on Super Deck Sunday. But it was like a year ago. And now the deck is more focused and it works a lot better than it used to. And Daddy improved on the combo some. And yeah. So I'm going to come over and sit on my daddy. And you guys are going to watch. And while you guys watch this, also keep in mind that we're going to give a big shout out, starting now, while Daddy puts the camera in, to our friend Shomenuchi. Is right. Shomenuchi, he gave us, oh, Daddy forgot to zoom out. Don't forget that, Daddy. You're going to be upset later. Thank you, Kaiba. Our friend Shomenuchi, he gave us a big prize contest package. And Daddy, he's like super happy about the prize package. We opened that last week. And you saw the video, hopefully. And today, Daddy's going to open one of the packs of the cards that came with that. He's going to open the Strixhaven pre-release kit at the end of the video. So we're going to see all the cool cards that are in this with the pretty birdie. But for now, you guys have to watch first the deck profile. So today's deck profile, we're doing kitty cats. Yes, kitty cats. Daddy's going to put up the one sets of windows because people are starting to arrive already. Daddy mistimed this a little bit, apparently. But he's okay. There's a person parked beside us already, so they're not going to be getting in and out of their car, so hopefully they won't be as noisy. So today's commander, Daddy, I'm zipping. Well, guy, but I don't know what you want to do. There, that's better. Good job, Daddy. Today's commander is the Jetmeer, Nexus of Revels. Look at the pretty cat art. So pretty. So pretty is the cat art. And shiny. And gorgeous. Yes. And it's the secret layer card. So it actually has a double side. And look how pretty the other side is too. Yes. Daddy's not 100% sure where the good lighting is anymore because Daddy can't see the camera as well. But he knows that the card is on camera. So that's the important part. Anywho. The commander, he's a 5/4. For 1 and a green and a red and a white. And he says that if you control 3 or more creatures, all your creatures get vigilance and +1/+0. If you have 6 or more creatures, they get an extra +1/+0 and they also get trample. And if you get up to 9 creatures on board, they get another +1/+0 and they also get double strike. That is pretty bad. Pretty bad. And by bad, I mean good. Because in this deck, there's going to be a lot of kitty cats. This is a kitty cats for the most part deck. Now, Daddy did want to say really quick before we got started that Daddy's thinking about building this as another commander with other kitties. And it's going to be like an artifacts deck. But that's going to be much later down the line, probably. Daddy's not sure he wants to build that right now. So, Daddy's setting that one aside. And, so yeah. So, we have some tokens. We got the kitty cat and another kitty cat. And we got another kitty cat. And another kitty cat. And a kitty cat beast. Wow. And another kitty cat, but this one has lifelink. And a treasure. And Daddy can't find a copy of the token yet, so he's got a meteorite that he wrote out. Because this deck has those. And a copy token, which we need for when we do the combo. There's a very cool combo in this deck. You want to see it at the end. Yes. Daddy promises that the combo will be the last thing that we talk about. Right, Daddy? Daddy gotta double check that before he says that and then he's wrong. Actually, Daddy, you might have put it in the wrong spot. I think you put it right behind the yams. So make sure that you do this the right way. Okay, there. Okay, there. Thank you, Kaiba. Good boy. Alright, he is right. So we will start with the lands. We got a Path of Ancestry because our cat commander is a cat, and with the exception of 3 creatures, everything else in here is a cat as well. We got Jungle Shine, Blossoming Sands, Rugged Highlands, Windscarred Crag, all to give us an extra bonus life, because this deck really wants to do the life gain thing, much like my White Angels deck does. Great Belt Refuge, also giving me a life. And then we've got the 3 temples, so we can do some scrying, just in case we're having trouble getting our lands. There are 34 lands in total in this deck, and 2 of them are sacrifice lands, so, well, one of them is a sacrifice land, so it's basically like 33. There's another one, which we're looking at right now, that you can sacrifice, but you don't necessarily have to. This one's kind of neat, though, because you can pay 3, tap, and a white, tap it, sacrifice, and then you gain 2 life for each creature you control. So it's a nice way to get off my alternate win con that is now added into this deck that I didn't have before, which definitely will make the deck a little bit more of a threat at the table. We have an Evolving Wilds, and then we've just got a whole slew of basics. Yep, that's it. The rest of them are all basics. Okay, just making sure. So mountain. We can appreciate the art, though. Mountain. Mountain. I tried to pick out ones where I thought like a whole bunch of cats would like be able to roam. That one being an exception. I kind of like that one for, I was thinking a Johnny could hang out there. Plains. Same idea. Places where I thought cats could be really comfortable. That one actually has a cat. I believe that's a Johnny, if I remember correctly, but it might be Johnny's Pride Mate instead. Plains, plains, and then we got some forests too. There are 8 forests, 8 plains, 7 mountains, and then the rest are all the extra lands for the total of 34. So I think that's a decent total for a 3-color deck, but I mean, I'm sure that I will have people telling me otherwise. Next up, we're going to do the enchantments and the artifacts minus the pieces that are in the combo and the pieces that are in the other surprise bit at the end of this deck. This deck has actually 2 really neat little side piece add-ins that I really think make the deck a lot more fun than it originally was. And again, I also refocused it a lot around lifelink and removed the focus on the artifacts. So you're going to notice there's a lot less artifacts now than there used to be in the first video. I'm going to put a link to the first video in the comments, or in the description, just in case you guys want to see it. Kaiba's gone to sleep, so I'm just going to continue the profile myself. We got Rising of the Day, sorry, 2 in a red. All my creatures get haste, and any of the creatures in my deck that happen to be legendary will also get a bonus +1/+0. There's, I think, like 10 legendary creatures, maybe 12, so I mean, it's a decent amount, including my commander. Arcane Signet, classic add-in, and there's a reason why I wanted to put in an Arcane Signet as well as this Patchwork Banner. Now, granted, the Patchwork Banner is nice because it gives a bonus to all my cats, but the 2 mana rocks are largely in here because of their interaction with a creature card that you're going to see later on, which you've probably already guessed what that creature is based on the tokens that I revealed earlier. Then I've got a Diamond Pickaxe. This is what I'm putting in here to get me most of the treasures. There is one other card, I think, that generates treasures in this deck, but it's a one-off sorcery thing. This is in here, and it's the only equipment card that I put in here, and it's specifically in here because, again, of what the other card in this deck is that works with mana rocks, which, yeah, I'm sure you've guessed it by now. Anyways. Felidar Retreat, 3 and a white. This is the other card that I really love in this deck. Landfall, whenever land enters, you get to pick one. Either you make a 2/2 white cat beast creature token, or you put a +1/+1 counter on all the creatures you control, and they each get vigilance until end of turn. What I love about this is it lets me either populate the board, or it lets me set up my board to swing. And having vigilance is really key for some of the cards in this deck in particular, because I want to be able to have blockers after I go into combat, essentially. Next up, we will do the Sorceries and Instants bundle. I've got a Swords to Plowshares. I've got a Rootborn Defenses. Populate. Creatures control gain indestructible in a turn. You'll notice that I'm doing a lot of like protect my board stuff. Make a stand. Creatures get +1/+0 and indestructible until end of turn. That's largely because Jetmir is going to get really expensive really fast because people will try and remove it as quickly as possible. especially since it is actually a component of my combo. It doesn't have to be a component of my combo. There is another way to get it to work, but it's a lot more difficult than it should be. So I prefer to have it work out with Jetmir. Anyways, target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains hexproof until end of turn. I would rather replace this. I forgot that I wanted to replace this with one of the green cards that gives hexproof and indestructible, but for now this is what's in here, and I will switch it out when I get home. Tamiyo's Safekeeping. Actually, you know what? I already have Tamiyo's Safekeeping in here, so that's probably why I left that one in here, so I could leave the other one I'm thinking of for another deck. That makes sense. Tamiyo's Safekeeping is 1, and again, target permanent you control gets hexproof and indestructible until end turn, and you gain 2 life. What I love about this one is it actually protects my enchantments too. So it protects all the key pieces to my combo, whereas this one will only protect a creature, which there are 3 creatures in the combo, so it is still a valuable card, but... Parting Gust. Another one that's in here largely to protect my own stuff more so than anything else. I can exile a thing and then return it to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it if I don't do the gift. Now, if I wanted to, I could give the fish to somebody and then I just permanently exile something. So it's basically a second Swords to Plowshares for protection as well. But it's mostly in here to like put something back off the board if it's being targeted and then put it back into play afterwards. We've got Wear and Tear. What I love about this is it has the fuse ability. I wish most of these cards did, but a lot of them didn't have this fuse concept, which is that you can actually pay both costs and get both abilities. So if I paid one, a red, and a white, I could destroy an enchantment and an artifact instead of just one or the other, which a lot of the other double set cards that I'm thinking of, for example, one of my favorite ones is called Rise and Fall. It's a red, black, and a blue, black. One lets you put stuff back into your hand, and the other one lets you destroy a creature, but you can't do both, which is really sad because I would love to be able to pay for both. Crack Open is the other card I was mentioning earlier that lets me get a treasure token by destroying an artifact or enchantment. Not too shabby. Hour of Reckoning. I don't really have any like counter spells in this deck because it's not running blue, and white's counter spells are not my favorites necessarily, so that's why there's some more removal stuff in here than anything else. 4 and 3 white, but I can Convoke it and destroy all non-token creatures. This one I think is really solid to use in my deck, but only if I'm not currently running the combo. As soon as I start running the combo, because it's a sorcery speed card, it won't work. So there is that. But I still like the fact that it wipes out all the non-token creatures. This deck is going to have a lot of tokens, so it will work out in my favor. Rite of Renewal, 3 and a green, lets me return up to 2 target permanent cards from my graveyard to my hand, and then target player shuffles 4 cards from their graveyard into their library. I'm going to target myself for both of these, and therefore get 6 cards back into my possession. Main goal of this is to basically get back as many of the combo pieces that get destroyed as possible. It's also a nice way to get Jetmir out of the graveyard and save myself the cost of commander tax for a turn, if need be. And then finally, Chef's Kiss in this deck, and because it's a cat deck, you knew I had to include this. White Sun Zenith, X and 3 white. You get to make X 2/2 white cat creature tokens, and then this gets shuffled back into your deck as well, so you get to replay this over and over and over again, which is really solid. Fun card for sure in this deck, because again, with Jetmir, we want to have as many bodies on board as possible. Next up, we are going to look at the bulk of the creatures, and then we're going to get into the some of the more interesting pieces afterwards, and then we're going to get into the 2 key groups that I was talking about earlier. So all these cards are all cats, first off, and second off, while they're all really solid cards, they're not necessarily like things that I absolutely have to keep in play, is the main reason why this pile is the way it is. So we've got Sabertooth Mauler. I love this guy because at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died on this turn, you put a +1/+1 counter and untap this thing, so it can keep getting bigger. And that's pretty solid first off, but second off, we definitely are going to have something either die on our board or die on their board because we're going to be swinging most turns. So Sabertooth Mauler is going to get triggered pretty much every one of my turns. As long as it doesn't die, of course. God's Hall Guardian is one that I went back and forth about removing. I do have a 1/4 with Vigilance, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to include a second copy of this and the 1/4 into my mono white deck when I build it. So that's why I left this one in here, because I don't like the expense of this one. It's a 5 and a white, but I can basically do the same cost, but I can cut it down by paying 2 in advance and pay 3 and a white later on. So it ends up being the same cost, 5 and a white overall, but decent in that way. It is a 3/6 with Vigilance though, so I mean it's a solid cat for sure. And with Jetmir's buffs, it ends up being like a 6/6 with Double Strike. Can't complain about that. Prideful Parent, another one with Vigilance, 2 and a white. What I love about this is it gives me an extra cat when it comes into play. Very cute art as well. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting these all on camera. Savannah Lions, the classic lion card, and a must include in a cat's deck in my opinion. Even though it's not really a like major hit anymore per se. I think you gotta give respect to the old cards, so. Basari's Acolyte, what I love about this one is it gives me 2+1/+1 counters on creatures when it comes into play. So 1 onto each creature is what I mean. It is a 2/3 as well for 2 and 2 white, and it has lifelink, so solid all around. And I do have an extra copy of that for when I build them on a white deck as well. White Mane Lion, 1 and a white for a 2/2. You can flash this thing in, which is nice, so if you need an extra body for a block, you always have one available. Plus, when it enters, you can return a creature you control to its owner's hand, so it's another one that you can use to save, say, Jetmir or something else, if you need to. Wild Nakatal, it is a 1/1 for 1 green, but if you have a mountain, it becomes a 2/2, and if you have a plains and a mountain, it becomes a 3/3. If you have a plains but no mountain, it's still a 2/2. So, I mean, it's a nice little include for this deck, I think. And I think it's the closest thing I have to a cheetah card, to be honest. Might be a leopard, though, I'm not sure. Pride Malkin, 2/1 for 2 and a green. Big thing about this one is when it comes into play, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, which you can target this, so it could become a 3/2 if you wanted to. And then any creature that has a +1/+1 counter on it gets trample. Now, there are several cards in here that are definitely going to put +1/+1 counters on things, like the Basari's Acolyte. But what I love about that in particular is going to give a major buff to some of the cats that get massive in this deck based on life gain. So that is what I think is really cool as a combo idea. Or I have a hard time with this one. Oresco's Sun Guide. You're okay, Kaiba. 1 and a white for a 2/2. Whenever this thing becomes untapped, I gain 2 life, which is really solid because this deck, like I say, wants to do the life gain thing as much as possible. So that's just free life every turn as long as I find a way to tap it or attack with it and let it survive. Sabertooth Tiger, an older card, and a beautiful one at that. First strike, 2/1. Mainly in here because I love the art, to be perfectly honest, but I mean 2/1 with first strike, it ends up being a 5/1 if it's on the board and Jetmir is fully in effect, so can't complain about a 5/1 with double strike and trample and vigilance, so yeah. Undergrowth Leopard, 1 and 0 green for 2/2 with vigilance, but what I love about this one is you can pay 1 and sacrifice it to destroy an artifact or enchantment, so it's another piece of removal in the deck as well. Frenzied Arnix, 2 and a red and a green for 3/3. It has Riot, so when it comes into play, you can put a +1/+1 counter on it, or you can give it haste. It has Trample in addition to that, and you can pay 4 and a red and a green to give it +3/+0 until end of turn, so it can become a 6/3. And then if Jetmir is on board and you have everything going, it can become a 9/3 with double strike and trample and vigilance, so pretty insane. Helpful Hunter, 1 and a white, gives you a 1/1 that lets you draw a card. Stalking Tiger, 3 and a green, gives you a 3/3 that can't be blocked by more than one creature, so basically has old school menace. Pretty nice art as well on this one. Very nice indeed. Felidar Savior, 3 and a white for a 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on up to 2 target creatures, except for this one. This one can't target itself. And in addition to that, this one has lifelink, which is pretty nice. So definitely worth the cost. 2 and a green gives you a Territorial Scythe Cat, which I like because it's a 2/1 that gets +1/+1 counters every time a land comes into play, and it has trample built in. So can already hit even if Jetmir is not on board. A Johnny's Primate is one of the ones I was talking about. Every time you gain life, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And it's not like a once per turn thing, so if you gain life multiple times in a turn, you can get multiple +1/+1 counters on this thing. So that one, combined with the Pride Malkin, becomes a serious threat on the board. You're okay. Malamet Veteran, 4 and a green, gives you a 5/4 with trample, and whenever this thing attacks, if there are 4 more permanent cards in your graveyard, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on any creature you control, which is pretty good. Pretty good. Prowling Felidar, 3 and a white for a 2/3. Vigilance, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, this thing gets a +1/+1 counter. So it is essentially just a white version of the Territorial Scythe Cat, but it's got 2/3 instead of 2/1, so it's worth the extra pip for sure. 2 and 2 white gives me a 2/3 with flying in first strike. I like that one. It's the only one that really looks like, well, no, I can't say that. There are several that look battle hardened, but I tried to include as many like cats in here as well, because I want the mono white deck to be more like a cat soldier almost like kind of deck. Cattle Outlander, green and red, gets you a 2/2 with protection from blue. Did I not park well enough? I thought I did. And yeah, just simple 2/2 protection from blue. Pretty cheap to get on board. Basically gives you an unblockable creature if the person's only running blue, which is nice. Similar to why I'm running Canyon Wildcat, 1 and a red, 2/1 with Mountain Walk. So essentially, as long as the person is running a mountain, I have an unblockable cat as well in that one. This one's really cute. I like this one. Scrounging Bandar, 1 and a green for a 0/0 cat monkey. When it comes into play, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters automatically. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can move any number of +1/+1 counters from this thing to another creature you control, which is pretty cool. You could essentially kill this thing if you really wanted to, but if you have a way to keep putting +1/+1 counters on this thing, this is one that you can actually keep like moving +1/+1 counters to other creatures so that they all get that buff from the Pride Malkin later on, which I love. As a little set combo between those two. Set's Tiger, 3/3. Another one with gorgeous artwork from the classic styles. 2 and 2 white to get it on board, and it has flash, so you can put it in any time. And when it comes into play, you gain protection from the color of your choice until end of turn, which is solid because if somebody's using, say, a one-hit kill spell to deal all kinds of damage to you, you can prevent it from being able to target you. So like I said, there's not really a lot of counter spells in here, but there are a couple counter creatures, which I thought was kind of neat. Next up, we have a Rescue Leopard. Ah, there is a leopard. I was worried there wasn't, or no, it was a cheetah you love. It's a cheetah that Shomenuchi loves, not a leopard. There are 2 leopards in this deck. 2 and a red for a 4/2. Whenever this thing becomes tapped, you get to discard a card, and if you do, you get to draw a card, which is solid. And then the last kitty that we're going to look at is Nakatal Hunt Pride. 5 and a white for a 5/4 with Vigilance. Pay a mountain and tap this thing, and you can choose a creature that can't block. Or you can pay a green and tap this thing, and choose a creature that has to block. Either way, I think that's really versatile. But also, it's just a really beefy boy to start out with. So when you combine that one with Jetmir, you end up with an 8/4 that has double strike, vigilance, and trample. Insanely good. Apologies. Family pulled up beside us and parked and started having a little chit-chat as they were getting everyone together to get out of the car, and Kaiba was getting a little upset. So I put a pause in the video. There are 3 sets of cards to go through really fast, and then we have our bundle to open and get us out of here because Kaiba wants to get going home. First up, we have the key cards in the deck. These ones I want to try and keep on the board. I probably should move Pride Malkin to this pile, actually, to be fair. Pride Malkin is definitely like... and Scrounging Bandar. Those two should probably be in this pile. So I'm just going to do that really quick because I feel like I've done them dirty by not including them in this group. Because I would like to keep those ones on board for sure. So, as I say, those two definitely want to keep on board. They should be in this pile. Then we've got Cat Collector. 2 and a white for a 3/2. This is one of the only non-cat creatures in the deck. When it enters, you get a food token, which I forgot to include in the deck, so I've got to get one of those. And then whenever you gain life for the first time during each of your turns, you get to make a cat, which is cool. So it only triggers once per turn, which is the downside, but I mean, every turn I'm going to get an extra body on board. Guaranteed, pretty much, in this deck. Almost. So that is awesome. Next up, Keeper of Fables, sorry. 3 and 2 green for a 4/5. Whenever one or more non-human creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. Essentially, you could be drawing up to 3 cards in a turn off of this thing, which is insanely good value for a deck that almost has entirely no humans. This is the only human out of the deck, essentially. Next up, Leonin Vanguard. 1 white for a 1/1 cat soldier. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, if you control 3 or more creatures, which, as we see from Jetmir, we definitely want to try to do. This thing gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and you get a life. So again, you're guaranteed to be getting a lot of life gain in this deck, which is very important, as you'll see in a bit. Kala, a Johnny's Pride Mate. I want to keep this one on board mainly because of the first ability on it. So for 3 and a white, you get a 3/3. Whenever this thing attacks, all your other attacking creatures get +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of counters currently on this thing. Whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on this thing, and again, that's not once per turn. So this one's better than a Johnny's Pride Mate, because this one gets you to give a bonus to all your creatures when you attack with it. And then, whenever you pay 3 and a white, you can gain 1 life, and that's not once per turn. So again, you could buff the snot out of this if you have enough mana available, and then swing with it to give everything on board a huge buff. Kutzil Malamet Exemplar is the main boy to keep on board for sure, because he prevents all you guys who are facing me from being able to play spells on my turn. So this is essentially my ultimate counter to counter spells and stuff. Since this deck really doesn't have a lot of ways to deal with counter spells, if I can get this on board early enough, basically you guys are shut out on all my turns, which is pretty solid. In addition to that, whenever one or more creatures you control, each with power greater than its base power, deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. So this is another one of those ones that's going to give me potentially up to 3 card draws in a turn, if I've boosted everything with +1/+1 counters, or if Jetmir is on board. Of course, the card you've predicted by now for sure, but the beautiful artwork is Roxanne Starfall Savant. 3, a red and a green, gives me a 4/3. Whenever she enters or attacks, I get to make a meteorite. When a meteorite enters, I deal 2 damage to any target, and then that meteorite stays on board and lets me tap for 1 mana of any color. The big thing I love about her, though, is whenever you tap an artifact token, token for mana. I did not read that well enough. I added in an arcane signet for no good reason. I should add in an extra land instead then. I totally put an arcane signet into this deck specifically because I thought it tapped for extra mana. I will definitely switch that out for an extra land when I get home. I'm not sure what land I'm going to put in, but I'll find one. Arabo, the First Fang. 2 and a white for a 2/2. All your cats, other than this one, get +1/+1. And whenever a non-token cat enters the battlefield, including this guy, you get to make a 1/1 white cat creature token. So this is the main reason to keep him on board as a second ability, but it is nice to give all the creatures an extra buff. And finally, our extra last cat that we want to keep on board is another Arabo, Roar of the World. I originally thought about running this as a commander for the second deck, but I decided I don't really have a lot of green stuff that I would want to run in an artifact green-white deck. And I prefer the other card I showed you earlier for the commander of that deck when I eventually get around to building it. So, at the beginning of my combat, if this thing is on the battlefield, because it's not going to be in my command zone, I can give any cat I control other than this one +3/+3. Also, whenever another cat I control attacks, I can pay 1 green and white, and if I do, that cat gains trample and +X/+X until end of turn, where X is its original power. So, if that cat is already power, say, 4, it's going to get +4/+4, which is pretty solid. And again, with Jetmir, this thing really pops off. All those are kitties that I really want to keep on board. Of course, Jetmir is another one I want to keep on board. And now we're going to look at one of the two really cool key groups in this deck. This is my Planeswalker group. So I have 3 cards in here that are really cool that I'm going to show you at the end. And then I'm going to show you at first the 5 Ajanis. I think I want to do them in this order. I'm just trying to remember which order I wanted to show them to you. Okay. First we have Ajani the Great-Hearted. 2, a green and a white. All my creatures get vigilance as long as he's on board. He gives a +3 life bonus to me every time I +1 him. And if I -2 him, I can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature I control and a loyalty counter on all my other planeswalkers except for him. So he's really solid in this deck. Next up, Caller of the Pride. Put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control for +1, -3, and a creature gets flying and double strike until end of turn, which is pretty cool. And then -8, you can put X 2/2 white cat creature tokens into play based on your life total. So this is one of the main reasons why I want to keep my life as high as possible in this deck, for sure. If I can actually get him to +8, that really is cool. Ajani Sleeper Agent, 1, a green and a white, and then a Phyrexian white or green. So you can pay that with white, green, or 2 life. But if you pay it with 2 life, he loses 2 loyalty as he comes into play. Pay 1 loyalty, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature or a planeswalker, you get to put it into your hand. Otherwise, you can put it onto the bottom of your library if you want to, or leave it there. -3, and you distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among up to 3 target creatures, or you can just put them on 1 or 2, however you want to do it. Any creature that gets a +1/+1 counter this way gets vigilance until end of turn, though. But the big one is getting him to -6. I get an emblem that says whenever I cast a creature or planeswalker spell, opponent I have, a target opponent of mine, ends up getting 2 poison counters, which is crazy. I have to put a poison counter token into this deck too. I forgot about that. Ajani Mentor Heroes, 3, a green and a white for 4 loyalty planeswalker. Plus him, and he gets to put 3 +1/+1 counters on 1, 2, or 3 target creatures you control. Again, splitting it up the way the last card did. Look at the top 4 cards of your library for +1 as well, and you can reveal an aura card or a planeswalker card from among them, put it into your hand, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Chances are I'm not doing that one, to be perfectly honest, unless I'm really needing another planeswalker for support or something like that. Because there's not a lot of auras in this deck. The only auras in this deck are actually in my hand right now. And finally, if you can -8 him, you get to gain 100 life, which would be an instant win in this deck with my 1 card that I'm going to show you in the next bundle. Then we have Ajani Nakatal Pariah. 1 and a white gives you a 1/2, and it also makes a 2/1 white cat creature warrior token, which I do not have a copy of. I forgot I have to make one of those too. And then whenever 1 or more cats you control die, other than this one, of course, you can't let him die. That's very important. You may exile him and return him onto the battlefield transformed as Ajani Nakatal Avenger. For 2, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on all your cats. For 0, you get to make a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token. And when you do, if you control a red permanent other than Ajani, you deal damage equal to the number of creatures you control to any target, which is insane. And for -4, each opponent chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the cards they control currently, and then they have to sacrifice everything else. This guy is probably the best planeswalker in the deck, to be perfectly honest. But I do have one more to show you. However, to be perfectly honest, I'm including it more so for the non-planeswalker side than the planeswalker side. But those are the 5 Ajanis of the deck. The other planeswalker that I include in this deck is, I'm going to show you the planeswalker side actually first, is Luca, Wayward Bonder. For 4 and 2 red, you get a 5 loyalty. Put +1, you get to discard a card. If it's a creature, you get to draw 2 cards, otherwise you draw 1. -2, target creature gets to be returned from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gets haste, but you have to exile it at the end of at your next upkeep, which is kind of crappy. But if you can find a way to exile it beforehand, it might lose that attached statistic on itself. So, yeah. And then finally, -7, you get an emblem where whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So, I mean, you basically just want to plus this one to +7 and do that as quickly as possible. But like I say, the main reason to include this one is for the other side, which is insanely cute, but not a cat. So this is the second card that is not a cat in the deck. Mila, Crafty Companion, a 2/3 for 1 and 2 white. Whenever an opponent attacks one or more planeswalkers you control, you get to put a loyalty counter on all your planeswalkers. So essentially, each turn, you have a chance to like give your planeswalkers extra loyalty and help them survive. Then, whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, you can also draw a card. So extra value there as well. The Planeswalker is good, don't get me wrong, but the front side is just a little bit better for how it helps you protect the Ajanis and get them to their max value quickly. And then I have 2 auras, both that have to be attached to a Planeswalker. Rowan's Talent for 2 and 2 red, and Vivian's Talent for 1 and 2 green. This one gives you the ability to give the Planeswalker +1, look at the top 4 cards of your library, you can reveal a creature or a land, put it into your hand, and put the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order. And then in addition to that, whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to put a loyalty counter on the enchanted Planeswalker. That one's pretty solid. But I actually think this one might be even a little bit better. Because the enchanted Planeswalker has +1 up to 1 target creature gets +2/+0 and gains first strike and trample until end of turn, which is solid. If you can't keep Jetmir on the field, this is another way to do it. And then, whenever you activate a loyalty ability of an enchanted Planeswalker, you get to copy that ability and choose new targets for the copy. So essentially, if you activate this ability, you could actually target 2 creatures with it because of this second ability here. And in addition to that, any of the other abilities on that Planeswalker also get doubled. So crazy good value, especially with regards to some of the cards that give you either massive life gain or do massive amounts of damage. And now we're going to get into the combo. I want to know, how do I want to do this? I'm going to save those 3 to the end because nope, you're going to do it the way we had it. Okay. I'm going to show you the pieces of the combo. They're all valuable, but the first 3 or 4 are probably the most important ones, and then the others kind of are decent and include my alternate win con. So, and they're all cats that I would love to keep on the battlefield again as well. So we've got Nakato Warpride. 3 and 3 green gives you a 3/3. It has to be blocked by only 1 creature if able, and it must be blocked. In addition to that, whenever it attacks, you get to put X copies of it into play that are tapped and attacking. And the amount of X is determined by how many creatures the defending player controls. So essentially, no matter what, one of these tokens is probably going to survive, because each creature has to block one of these tokens, and this creature also has to be blocked by 1 creature. So if the opponent is wise, they're going to want to block this with something big and kill it, so that the token gets killed. But we have a workaround for that. And the better part is if multiple tokens survive. However, if only 1 token survives, it's not the end of the world, because part 2 of the combo is Oscillate Pride, which is probably the most expensive card in this deck. 1 white gets you a 1/1 with first strike and lifelink, so solid, always gaining life. It has Ascend, so we're going for the City's Blessing, which by the time we get both these cards on the board, chances are we've got enough lands that we've got City's Blessing. And then, at the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, you get to make a 1/1 white cat creature token. Then, if you have the City's Blessing in addition to that, you get to make a copy of each token that entered the battlefield this turn. So, if the Nakato Warpride token survives the battle, which at least 1 token will, you're going to make copies of that token. And then, the tokens that the tokens that this thing makes do not get exiled at the end of the turn. So, you're going to keep Nakato Warprides on the board, and the more tokens that survive, the more copies of it you have to swing with on your second turn. Which is what this combo is. It's like a 2-turn game over combo. Gurney here. Just a real quick thing I wanted to add in about the deck. I can't remember if I actually said it or not, so I'm filming this just in case, and if you see it, that means I forgot, and if you don't see it, that means it didn't. In terms of how Nakato War Pride and the Ocelot Pride work, the other real important part of the combo is actually, of course, the commander. If Jetmir is on board, as soon as I throw all those tokens into play, they will still get all the buffs from, even though they're coming in tapped and attacking, they're still going to get buffed by Jetmir, I believe, as they're entering, if I remember correctly, and therefore get trample and double strike. The vigilance won't matter because they're entering tapped and attacking, but that still means they could be potentially getting up to plus 3/0, which make them 6/3s with trample and double strike. So it makes those tokens extra fierce if that's the case, and if not, at the bare minimum, the next time around I have however many extra copies of Nakato War Pride hopefully on the field, and each of those ones will already be buffed so that when I swing with them, not, again, their tokens not necessarily if it doesn't work the way I hope it does, but if it does work the way it does, great. If not, at least those new tokens that the Ocelot Pride made will all be buffed the next time around, and again, give me the potential that at least one's going to survive, regardless of who I swing at. The idea being that you want to swing at the person with the most creatures first, beef up as many tokens as you can to survive, and then that way when you go the following turn to swing, you can swing at both players simultaneously who remain, and if need be, the third player if they actually somehow survived. Alrighty, so that's what I wanted to add about the deck. I'm just sandwiching that in here right in the middle of my video, so sorry for that, but yeah, thanks guys. Now in addition to that, we have two pieces that really make this combo pop off huge for me. First, the final creature that is not a cat is Hinterland Sanctifier. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under my control, I gain 1 life. That's going to trigger a whole bunch of things in this deck already in the first place. But what I really love about that is that triggers with Nakato War Pride. So all those tokens that come into play tapped and attacking give me 1 life for each token. And since that works for life gain, it also works for life lost, which is why we have Impact Tremors in this deck. Whenever a creature you control enters, this enchantment deals 1 damage to each opponent. So I'm going to gain 1 life for each copy of this that comes into play, and you're going to lose 1 life, all of you, for each copy of this that comes into play. Then I'm going to put in a whole bunch of extra copies at the end of the turn and do it again. The other 3 cards in here, which are all really good cards, but they're in here mainly because they help Nakato War Pride survive. There are a couple other things that you've already seen that give buffs, but these ones do some really insane stuff. First off, this one, 2 and 2 white, 4/4, first strike. Pay 3 and 2 white, and attacking creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. So essentially, all the cat War Prides are going to get massively buffed after you trigger this. Now, the only downside is I don't think I can trigger this. I think I can trigger it at instant speed, but I think I have to do it. I'm not sure if I can do them in the actual order that I want to do, which is the one thing I didn't get to check ahead of time as a rules thing. But even if not, I can at least buff the original Nakato War Pride to make sure it survives by a massive amount. Regal Caracal, 3 and 2 white, gives you a 3/3. All your cats get +1/+1 and lifelink, which is fantastic because if I don't have a way to necessarily gain life in a turn for whatever reason, it can replace the Hinterland Sanctifier as a way to get all my War Pride tokens to give me lifelink, and therefore I'm going to gain life no matter what when they swing. And then, of course, it also lets me make 2 1/1 cat creature tokens with lifelink, which is just a nice little bonus, but it's not the main reason it's in here. And the final card in the deck, the alternate win con that I've been talking about all along, which you probably guessed by now, but just in case you haven't, is a copy of Felidar Sovereign, which I recently picked up in one of my Jumpstart packs after I had built this deck. It's a 4/6 for 4 and 2 white, has vigilance and lifelink, so it's already gaining life. But the big thing is, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 40 or more life, you automatically win the game. This was originally obviously designed for standard and modern things like that, but this thing's insane in Commander. And with all the different things that give me a massive amount of life gain in this deck, if I can get this on board and do anything in a turn, and it survives, I win the game next turn. So if you don't die to the crazy Nakato War Pride combo, there's lots of reasons that this will just end the game automatically. And that is my red, white, and green cat deck. And now let's open this and get us home because Kaiba's starting to get a little hot. I can tell. Yes, my baby, I can tell you're getting a little warm. I'm sorry. Do this quick. While I do this, I just want to give one more big shout out over here to Shomenuchi for giving me the bundle. And for a big congrats for the 200 subs, which I think you're over like 225 now, if I remember correctly. I gotta go double check that. Put in the proper number when I do the video. Starting off, we have a Stirring Hope Singer. 2 and a white for 1/3 with flying and lifelink, which is insanely good. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. I don't know how well that works in my current bird deck, but I have multiple copies of the commander that I'm using for my bird commander, which I think is probably the best bird commander out there in my opinion. Unless you wanted to go blue, white, and green. So this might go in another future bird commander deck, or it might go in something else. I haven't decided for sure what. Mind into Matter is next. X, green, and blue. Draw X cards and you may put a permanent card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Okay, I'm going to roll down the windows a little more for you, honey. Oh, not that one. There. We're going to go in like 5 minutes, okay? I promise. Quandrix Charm, blue and green. Choose one. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. Destroy target enchantment. Target creature has a base power and toughness 5/5 until end of turn. Nice. Tam Observant Sequencer. 2, a green and a blue for a legendary creature, Gorgon Wizard. It is a 4/3 with landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, this becomes prepared. And then you can pay blue and green to draw a card and gain a life. Nice. That's actually pretty decent. That might go in the deck that I'm currently trying to upgrade the blue, black, green one. Paradox Surveyor. Elf Druid, 3/3. Blue, a green, and a mix of an either or. Reach. Whenever this thing enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a land or a card with X in its mana value. Cost. From among them, put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Neat. Emil Vastlands Roamer. We got a lot of legendaries in this. Another elf, which is good because I have elf decks that I want to fix up too. And one that I want to build. 2 and a green. Creatures in control get +1/+, or creatures in control with +1/+1 counters on them have trample. Nice. 4 and a green. Tap. Create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of differently named lands you control. Cool. Fractal Mascot. 4 in a green and a blue for Fractal Elk, 6/6 trample. When it enters, tap a creature an opponent controls, put a stun counter on it. Okay. I think the Vastlands Roamer might be the best one in here so far, but there's some really good stuff in this pack. Spellbook Seeker, 3 in a blue for a bird wizard. Flying, when it enters, is prepared. And draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards for 1 blue, which is nice, actually. That's pretty good. Embrace the Paradox, 3 and a green and a blue. Ooh, actually, I know exactly what deck I'm putting that. That will go in my bird deck really well, because I have a way to actually exile and put that back into play on a regular basis. And, oh, but you have to discard 2 cards. Never mind, that's not good enough. I need to be able to draw and not discard. Embrace the Paradox. 3, a green and a blue. Draw 3 cards, then you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Nice. Hydro Channeler. 1 and a blue. Taps to add blue, but you can only use it for instant and sorcery spells, which, no big deal there. Pay 1, tap, add 1 mana of any color. Again, only for mana, for instant and sorcery spells, but still, really cool mana dork. Testbook Tabulator. Yay, more frogs. I need more frogs. 2 and a blue for a 0/3. Increment. Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana you spent is greater than this creature's power or toughness, you get to put +1/+1. Ooh, cool. And when it enters, you surveil 2. Nice. Rancorous Archaic. 5 for a 2/2 with reach and trample. And it enters with a +1/+1 counter on it for each color of mana spent to cast it. Okay. Hungry Graffallen, 3 and a green, reach, and it has increment, 3/4. It's a giraffe. Ooh. I think that's my first giraffe card. Banishing Betrayal. 1 and a blue. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Surveil 1. Decent. Paradox Gardens. Enters tapped. Taps for green or blue. Pay 2, a green and a blue. Tap. Surveil 1. It's a little expensive for a surveil cost, but I like it. I like it. Beautiful artwork in particular is my favorite part of that. And then we got the prepared tokens and such. We got a couple copies of that. Okay. Cool. Very nice little pack. Thank you, Show, for sharing these cards with us. And I hope that you enjoy the video. And I hope that the rest of you guys enjoy the video as well. Show really likes cats, so that's why I wanted to open this when I did the cats deck this week. And next week, I'm probably going to do a Yu-Gi-Oh deck and do some sort of like small tribute to Simo. I made a post about it on the channel. But Simo is like a big Yu-Gi-Oh creator who passed away last week. And so I'm going to probably do like a Yu-Gi-Oh video and some sort of small tribute to him next week. But for now, I'll leave you guys with a view of Kaiba and Jetmir. Much love to you all from Kaiba the Pug and myself to you. Take care. Thank you for watching. And we hope that you guys will tune in for the next one. Love you all. Bye.